Hey guys, what's up? What is going on? Welcome back to another video. We have 7 days to go till the presidential election. 7 days. 7 days. It's already a week away. I've been dreaming of this moment since 2016. So, let's get started. So I've already filled out the safe states. Not much to talk about here. I'm going to talk about one of these states. That's Utah. Evan McMullin did endorse Joe Biden. He got 20% of the vote here in 2016 from being a third-party conservative anti-Trumper type candidate. So I think that'll help Joe Biden in Utah. I think that Utah could be, based on the polls that we've seen, closer than people think. But I'm going to err on the side of caution, on the side of Utah still a red state. It's still a conservative state, and there might be some establishmentarians, some establishmentarian type conservatives who break for Trump at the very end because they just cannot see themselves voting Democrat. So Utah going to go to Trump by, I think, 13-14%. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the state of New Mexico. I don't really want to spend too much time on this because it's important that we cover the more competitive states, but New Mexico, I think Joe Biden is going to outperform Hillary Clinton in the raw vote total because Gary Johnson got a lot of votes there in 2016. So I think Biden, Hillary Clinton, she only got like 49% of the vote because of how well Gary Johnson did. He was a libertarian former governor. So I do think that Joe Biden will be able to get at least 50% of the vote, probably thinking 54, 55% of the vote here. So he'll be able to win by something like 10%. I don't see him running up the score with Latinos, so I think that if you had a Bernie Sanders type candidate, one who is more strong with Latinos in this area, they'd be able to win it by a safe margin. But because it is Joe Biden, because Latinos, or Trump has kind of expanded his base with Latinos, I think that Joe Biden will not be able to win it by over 12%. The same goes for Colorado. The mail-in data has looked pretty solid for the Democrats here. So if I were Joe Biden, I wouldn't be too concerned. But to err on the side of caution, we are going to put this in the likely column for the former vice president. The last likely state, or there are two, but first we're going to talk about Maine at large. It's Hillary Clinton. She won it by a lean margin in 2016. Biden's definitely going to outperform here. Outperform her here, he'll get. I think he'll win by 78% of the vote, by 78%. So, but it's more important that we go over to Virginia, where I think it will be closer than some people think. People are saying this is a solid, safe Biden's state. I really disagree with that because, first of all, Hillary Clinton, she won it by, I think, 4% in 2016, 3%. It was a lot closer than people anticipated. The polls in Virginia actually underestimate GOP support. So, I get that the polls are putting Joe Biden ahead by, let's see how much, by 11.4%, according to Real Clear Politics. However, I think that A, they're going to continue to underestimate GOP support, and B, there are going to be a lot of disaffected former Democrats who own guns that are going to vote for Donald Trump for the first time in their life. It's not going to be a ton. It'll be probably 2% of the electorate, maybe less. I might be overestimating the support of them for Donald Trump because actually Joe Biden is more conservative on guns than Hillary Clinton. But either way, there is that sentiment, and I think it will help Donald Trump in Virginia. Now, Alaska is another state that Donald Trump is going to win pretty easily, but it won't be 12% type margin. It'll be more like 9-10%. So I'm going to move on. Not too much going on in Alaska. Now in Texas, I'm going to get a lot of heat for this in the comment section because a lot of you are supporting Joe Biden, and a lot of you would love to see a blue Texas. That's fine. Supporting Joe Biden is a perfectly fine thing, as is supporting Donald Trump, for the record. But in Texas, people are going to say, oh, the polls, the polls are putting Trump only ahead by 1%, and Biden's within the margin of error, and the polls underestimated Hillary Clinton by 3% in 2016. You're right, and if you weight the polls according to how accurate they were in 2016, Joe Biden would end up winning Texas, but hear me out. And I say this every video, and I bet my more seasoned viewers are going to be, oh, here he goes again. But so, bear with me for 30 seconds. Beto O'Rourke, let's see how much word, 4 minutes. Beto O'Rourke ran for Senate in Texas in 2018, as we all know. He did very well. He made a lot of inroads with the white voters. He campaigned in every single county. And I would pull up a county map, but I'd rather, because my screen recorder doesn't give me the option to record every single tab, like it does, but it's HD on just one tab, so I'm only gonna record the map. But I'm looking at a county map of Texas right now. There are like hundreds of counties. So He visits every single one of those. Biden doesn't have the time to do it. He also out-fundraised Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is unpopular compared to Donald Trump in Texas. But Texas is still a blue, or still a red state. And it's going to stay that way for the near future. And I do think that Joe Biden is going to lose Texas by 5-6%. By the way, speaking of Texas, one last thing that favors Donald Trump. The mail-in votes have looked exceptionally good for him. And he's actually winning so far, he's currently winning the mail-in / early votes by double digits. So that's a very good sign for him. And I do think that he'll be able to hold on to Texas by the end of the election. So now we're going to move over to the state of South Carolina. I don't think this state is as competitive as Texas, but it's certainly more competitive than a state like Mississippi or Alaska. I think the black turnout will be high enough for Joe Biden to make it likely. And by the way, it was almost likely in 2016. It was, barely safe. So I think it's pretty inevitable that it goes likely, but it'll only be likely. I think it'll be 8-9% margin of victory for Donald Trump. One less likely state for the president is Missouri. He's going to win here pretty comfortably, but just not by over 12% according to my projections. So we have 163 electoral votes for the president so far, 212 for the vice president, for the former vice president, I should say. And we're now going to move on to the state of Nevada. So we're going to talk about Nevada, the mail-in data so far. Again, and when I say that Trump is beating Biden or Biden's beating Trump, I'm using Target Smart Voter Registration data. So again, we're just seeing, okay, well, this is how many registered Democrats have returned mail-in ballots. This is how many registered Republicans have. So it's a guesstimate, but whatever. So, whoops, I just pulled up Wisconsin. I don't need to do that. Whoa. Okay. That's a professional. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best here. But going back to the state of Nevada, Nevada, the current mail-in data has put Biden ahead, and it's looking pretty good for him. He's winning, although Trump is outperforming, I guess you could say. And this makes sense to me. I think that Trump was always going to outperform expectations. I don't think that Joe Biden is really, I don't really think that Joe Biden is a great candidate for Nevada. He's not really strong with Latinos. He's underperforming Clinton. And the polls in Nevada underestimate Democratic support. Yeah, you heard me right. They underestimate Democrats. So, you can say, oh, okay, well, California's not likely. You can say, okay, well, in that case, then why not just give it to Biden? Because he's ahead by 7% according to that polling aggregate from Real Clear Politics. So why not just give it to him as a likely seat? Well, it's been pretty nonsensical and conflicting because, the party registration since 2018 has been trending more towards Republicans, believe it or not. And, just Biden is not super strong candidate for this region. He lost the caucus by a considerable amount to Bernie Sanders. So the data that we've seen, the polls are putting Biden up consistently, but I don't think that he'll be able to run up the score with Latinos. So lean Democratic state right here. Another lean Democratic state, that's the state of Arizona. And I say this for the reason of Mark Kelly being on the ballot will help Joe Biden because there are going to be a lot of on the fence because Mark Kelly is going to win the Senate race. There are going to be a lot of on the fence voters who say, okay, well, I really like Mark Kelly, so I'm going to vote for Kelly, but I'm not sure about Trump and Biden. They're going to say, well, I'm voting for Kelly. Why not just give him a Democratic president to work with, and they're going to vote for Joe Biden? And it sounds silly. I certainly wouldn't do that. I would certainly evaluate each and every candidate by their individual merit, not their party affiliation. But there are going to be a lot of people who do that, and that's going to help Joe Biden in Arizona. The Democrats also won the 2018 Senate race. The party registration has been trending towards the Democrats. The mail-in data has looked fairly good for the Democrats in Arizona based on what we've seen. Right now, the Democrats are beating the Republicans by 8%. And, that may seem insignificant, but you have to remember that we're seeing higher turnout from Latinos than we did in 2016. And you can say, okay, well, Biden is underperforming Clinton with Latinos. Yeah, but he's still winning them. So, yeah. And we're going to fill out the entire Rust Belt as lean for Joe Biden. That's going to give him the victory. So you might have noticed from my old videos that I characterize Minnesota and Michigan as likely Democratic. That's changing. Starting with Minnesota, I just don't see Biden being able to turn around to score in the iron range, as I had previously said. So I think it'll barely be likely, or barely be lean. It'll be like 4.8, 4.9% margin of victory. So Minnesota, I don't really think that Trump is going to win here, but I think that Biden is going to underperform my original expectations. Now, going over to Wisconsin, we're going to talk about Wisconsin for a second, and I'm getting a lot less confident that Joe Biden's going to win Wisconsin. And we're seeing the mail-in data. Again, Wisconsin doesn't register by party, so the Target Smart data could be 100% off. But the polls, but the data we're seeing right now, the Republicans are requesting more mail-in ballots than Democrats, and they're returning more. So again, we're seeing around 1.3 million mail-in ballots being returned, which is up from 2016, but as it is everywhere. So that's good news for the Democrats. The bad news is they're losing by 6% in terms of party registration, according to Target Smart. Not entirely accurate, which is why it's still going to put them ahead. Still worth talking about, though. But the polling data that we've seen, again, Wisconsin does underestimate Trump's support by a considerable amount, but Biden is leading by more than Clinton ever led by. Clinton didn't really campaign here. She literally visited it once, and it was in April of 2016 to campaign against Bernie Sanders. Biden has made his whole campaign about this state, or the Rust Belt region. He's much more appealing. The last time he was on the ballot in 2012, the Democrats, or he won the state pretty convincingly. 2008, he also kicked McCain's behind in the state. And in 2018, the Democrats did exceptionally well in the midterm elections. Tammy Baldwin, she won her race by 11%, and they flipped the governor's mansion. So the mail-in data has looked pretty weird. It's pretty nonsensical, as I said, about Nevada, but at the end of the day, this is still going to be blue, just by a little bit less than I originally anticipated. Same with Michigan. The mail-in data has, been, I think it's currently the Republicans in terms of party registration, and as I said, party registration, and as I said, this is a guesstimate because Michigan doesn't register by party, but according to Target Smart, the Republicans are winning the early mail-in vote in terms of registration by around 1%. So it's close, but that's still good news for them. But the polling that we've seen, the polls underestimated Trump by around a little more than 2% in 2016. But let's look at the polling. We can give Trump the 2% cushion, and he still loses pretty convincingly. Biden is currently ahead by 8%. This is his, I think this is his largest lead ever in Michigan. No, he was ahead by 10 in June, but it's the new normal for him. Back in, like we saw tightening in the beginning of September, he was only ahead by 5%. Hillary Clinton on election day, she led by 2%. Right now, Biden's up by 8%. And I think that's certainly a good sign for him. Of course it is. And I think the Democrats are going to make inroads in a lot of places. They're going to, first of all, Joe Biden was responsible for the auto bailout. He has to run on that. He's visited Michigan repeatedly. And from the data that we've seen, in Michigan, like talking about these more blue-collar voters, I do think that Biden is going to make inroads, like in places like Oakland County, in places like Genesee County. I'm trying to think of other more blue-collar counties. Isabella County, Muskegon County. In a lot of these places that not Tammy Baldwin, that Debbie Stabenow won in her 2018 Senate bid. I think Biden is going to make inroads there. Now, he might lose a little support in Detroit. We're talking 1 to 2%. But the Democrats, they're going to make inroads with the rural vote. They're going to make inroads with the blue-collar white vote. And they are 100% going to win. We're going to outperform their 2016 numbers. I don't care whether they're losing Michigan, which is unlikely at this point. But Joe Biden, I don't see it. I don't think it's possible for him to do any worse than Hillary Clinton did. She made no appeal to these voters. She didn't campaign here. She didn't really. Her whole campaign was, essentially about diversity. It was about, stronger together, right? Donald Trump literally, he talked about jobs. He talked about China. He talked about bringing jobs back from China. And that's one of all these states, except for Minnesota. Biden is doing much better than Clinton did in this area. He's going to win. Pennsylvania. Now, the Target Smart data, which is actually more accurate because Pennsylvania does register by party. Pennsylvania, the data that we've seen here, the Democrats are crushing it. They're winning by 51%, and it's looking pretty shaky for Trump. I do think that Biden will actually overperform my original expectations. Like when I started this channel back in April, back in May, this was a tilt Biden state. Now it's lean, and I could see it being likely based on the data that we've seen. The polls in 2016 underestimated Trump by around 2%. But, looking at the polls right now, Biden's up by a little more than 5. So it's going to be close. I do think Trump has a good chance here. But as of right now, the data that we've seen, this is going to go to Joe Biden. So now we're going to fill out our one more lead state. That is the state of New Hampshire. And it's important that we move on. But first, I just want to say that the Democrats' early vote has looked great for them. The polls have looked great for them. And they were 100% accurate in 2016 in the state. The colleges are shut down, though, which could actually halt Democratic voter registration efforts. But I'm going to keep it in the Democrat column. So now we're going to move on to our Trump states. We have, I think, 3 leading Trump states, and I'll have to look at these are the 2 toss-up states, essentially. But starting with the state of Iowa, the mail-in votes have looked pretty good for the Democrats, surprisingly early on. They looked pretty good for Trump in 2016, but the early vote data, which is party registration, has looked very good for the Democrats. They're winning by 20% in a state where the Republicans have the voter registration edge. So why am I putting in the lean column? Well, there are a lot of things going in the Democrats' favor, as I mentioned. The mail-in ballots, the fact that they won the congressional vote totals in 2018. But the polling that we've seen, I just don't trust it. I mean, they underestimated Trump by a lot in 2016, and right now they're putting him behind by only 1%. So I get that he was ahead by 2 in 2016, but he still won the state by 9. I don't think it'll be like that, but I think that the polls will underestimate him again, and that he's going to win the state by 2.5 to 3%. Now going over to Ohio, in Ohio, the polls actually look, or not the polls, the mail-in vote actually looks great for Donald Trump. He's actually winning outright, if I'm correct, and as of right now, he's winning by around 8-9% in the early votes. Now the polls have looked pretty weird. They've fluctuated quite a bit. From the end of May to the to the beginning of August, Trump was behind by 3-4%. But since then he's surged in Ohio. It's been pretty back and forth, but right now he's winning by around 1%. Remember, the polls in Ohio underestimated him in 2016. They're probably going to again, and he's probably going to lose the state, or he's probably going to win the state by 4%. And Ohio will thus, according to my projection, break its streak of predicting the winner of the election. Now, Georgia is a state that's gotten a lot of hype for flipping blue. I understand, particularly JHK Forecast and Lean Toss-Up have actually put Biden ahead in Georgia, or have him as the favorite to win. And on Lean Toss-Up right now, I can tell you that according to the Lean Toss-Up forecast, Joe Biden has a 75% chance of winning Georgia. So I think that's really, really interesting for a lot of reasons, because this has been a historically red state. So, as of right now, I'm going to have to go with Donald Trump winning it. The polling data that we've seen, I actually think it's put Joe Biden ahead. He's ahead by 0.4%. But still, I don't see him winning. He's within the Donald Trump is within the margin of error. And I think voter suppression is unfortunately going to happen. Voter suppression is never a good thing, but in this case, it's going to benefit the Republican Party. So, Georgia will go to Donald Trump by 3-4%. Now, we're going to start with the state of North Carolina because I'm more confident about it than Florida. But, the Democrats are crushing it in the early vote here. They're winning by double digits, which they needed to do. In 2016, they were not winning by double digits. They're actually losing, I believe, in terms of the early vote. But again, things have changed since then. So I think it's fair to say Trump still has a very good chance of winning, and he does. Because as of right now, the polls have it in pretty dead heat. I'll look at it right now on my other tab. By the way, the polls have been very accurate in the past. In North Carolina, they got it. Basically, they underestimated Trump by 0.5%. I had to take a drink of water, but right now, Joe Biden is ahead by 2.5. I think he'll win by 1.5%, maybe even a little less. I might be overestimating him there. But Roy Cooper is the governor. He's going to be on the ballot. He's certainly going to be helping down ballot Democrats like Joe Biden and Cal Cunningham. He's the popular governor, by the way. I think I just mentioned that, so I'm kind of talking in circles here. But that's because I am brain dead right now and would rather not be filming this video, but we have to get this out. But anyways, North Carolina, is going to go to Joe Biden because of the fact that Roy Cooper is on the ballot. And this is my main reason. He's also, in 2016, there was evidence of voter suppression, discarding provisional ballots from minorities, which obviously tend to vote Democrat more often than not. So this time, Roy Cooper is going to be counting the provisional ballots and mail-in ballots in a way favorable to his party, which is the Democratic Party. So I do think that Cooper and the Democrats are going to win. I think Cunningham's going to win. I think Cooper's going to win his governor's race by 10%. I think Cunningham's going to win his Senate race by 3%, and I think Biden's going to win by 1 to 2%. Oh boy, it's Florida. I don't know what to say about the state. This state is so wacky. Florida is Florida. Now, the people that I've talked to from Miami-Dade County in Florida, they're saying, okay, well, Florida right now, there's a lot of enthusiasm for Trump. But I've talked to people from Tampa and Jacksonville, and they're saying, okay, they're about, it's actually weird, because in Miami, they're saying there are Clinton signs here in 2016, and this time they're all Trump signs. But then the people I talked to from Jacksonville and Tampa, they're saying the opposite. They're saying there are Trump signs here in 2016, there are Clinton signs here in 2020. That's highly anecdotal. Don't base your prediction off of yard signs and flags. For where I live in a more Republican, establishment type Republican suburb, but still in 2016 I saw a lot of Trump flags and Trump signs. Now I haven't seen a single one. It's all Biden flags, and a lot of those Biden flags or Biden yard signs are in the same spot as a Trump yard sign stood in 2016. So it's still important to look at this stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm not entirely sure that yard signs matter, but whatever. It's interesting to talk about because it's, it's you're surveying the political climate, if to be dramatic. But I'm going to give it to Joe Biden. I mean, my gut really tells me, he says, UEP, don't do it, you give it to Trump. But I'll tell you what, Hillary Clinton, I think Joe Biden will outperform Hillary Clinton in Miami-Dade County, but he's going to make a ton of inroads with these more conservative, establishmentarian type Republicans, McCain, Romney type Republicans who voted for Trump, held their nose and voted for Trump in the Panhandle in 2016. They turned away from Trump, and there's evidence Biden is actually winning seniors, which would be insane. But based on the polling data that was very accurate in 2016 in Florida, Biden is up by 3%. So I'm not going to trust the polls blindly. Every forecast has Biden ahead in Florida. And based on the early vote data, which favors the Democrats, again, the Republicans are doing horribly. This is still a toss-up state, but the Democrats are doing well in Florida. So I'll give it to Biden against my better judgment, but whatever. Now, we have two districts. I forgot about these, unfortunately. Really quickly, Nebraska's 2nd district, the polls have put Biden ahead. I'll go with them. Again, I didn't really look at the polls in 2016, so I can't say whether they're accurate or not, but I guess I'm going to have to trust them in this case because of the conflicting data that we've seen. Now, Nebraska's 2nd district, the average has put Biden ahead by 7%. I'll give Trump the benefit of the doubt and say he'll lose it by around 4%. It's more urban. I think we're going to see, again, a lot of this more Midwestern vibe going on for Biden than it did in 2016 for Hillary Clinton. Now, going over to Maine's 2nd district, I think this will be exceptionally close. I think Jared Golden has a good chance at winning, but unfortunately for him and Joe Biden, they're going to lose here because it's rural, it's a white, and I think that the Democrats have lost a lot of their appeal here because they've gotten more liberal and more minority controlled. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please, please, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on post notifications so you never miss another upload. There are a bunch of links in the description. We got Twitter, we got Patreon, we got the official poll you can take. We can, you can look at, what else was there? I already mentioned that. But there are a bunch of links you can check out. Fantasy politics, to sign up for my pick'em for the election. It's not too late. So, again, guys, thank you so much for watching the video, and I'm out. Thanks again, and be sure to vote. Early vote in person, vote on election day. Just vote. Please vote. I'll see you.